Buckingham Palace, the monarch's official residence in London, and until 5 days ago, the undisputed domain of Her Majesty Elizabeth II. Her death last week means that this is now the official home of King Charles III, but the late Queen will make one final visit to her old residence before the state funeral takes place next Monday. Outside the palace, in the surrounding streets and parks and at royal residences in other parts of the UK, a tide of flowers and messages and gifts, all of them a vibrant illustration of the nation's affection and deep respect for Her late Majesty. 24 hours that few will ever forget. Thousands of people gathered to see the silent royal procession to St. Giles Cathedral, and then they queued patiently throughout the night for their opportunity to file past Her Majesty's coffin. It's been an immense display of respect and affection ahead of the time for the late Queen's body to be taken to London. When the Queen's coffin, which was a kind of royal aircraft, is expected to arrive at RAF Northolt on the western fringe of London at any moment. Her late Majesty will then make that final approach to the capital and will lie at rest overnight in the Bow Room, which is a room overlooking the wonderful gardens behind the palace at Buckingham Palace. They had a rather sunny day there today, all rather blustery. The contrast rather with what's going on in central London in the past couple of hours, where it's rather wet, but there was an important visit today where the King and the Queen Consort simply wanted to say thank you for all the good wishes that they've received, but also to recognise all the tributes from people in Northern Ireland to the late Queen. And the Royal Air Force to transport troops around the world, to take supplies around the world, often humanitarian missions. Well, this is the iconic aircraft that is bringing the Queen's body back to London this evening. Roya.
And I think you touched on there the Princess Royal accompanying her mother, the Queen, on her final journey back home.
It's the moment when you see the coffin that it all comes home to you. If anybody watching, remembers their own parent's death or another parent, it's you arrive at the church and you're almost sort of trying to keep the good humour going, and then you see the coffin and the reality of it dawns.
The Queen has been using this airbase many times over the years on her travels. As I was saying a short while ago, it's a moment when we catch a glimpse of the coffin itself, having seen it in Edinburgh, but now seeing it not in Scotland, but in England. Show of respect for the Queen's return. It's a time for us all to reflect on what this return means. The Princess Royal, who spent quite a few days at Balmoral, and as Roya was saying just a short while ago, has been really dedicated to her mother's care. The banner, the insignia, draped in black.
Royal salute. Present arms.
The body of Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, emerges from the Royal Air Force plane, brought by the bearer party, the Queen's Colour Squadron, 63 Squadron of the Royal Air Force Regiment. standard of the Queen's Colour Squadron, the very powerful signal of respect because it's touching the ground. The rain is falling. The headlamps are on already.
Her Majesty, and that's because during her time as Queen, Her Majesty visited this base on many occasions. Indeed, the Duke of Edinburgh was an honorary Air Commodore and attended many dinners here. That relationship between the military and the royal family is well known. As the royal hearse left the airfield, I think there was a sense of calm, almost peace, that everything had gone to plan.
The state hearse making its way towards central London. The outriders there with the lights flashing. Lots of the cars, of course, stop. They realise exactly what's going on.
I think we can all appreciate that at the same time as being a great public event.
The person following in the vehicle, the Princess Royal, who's really been with Her Majesty for the last few days of her life.
We've got people stopping on their way home from work, just parking their cars in the fast lane, crossing the central reservation, just to say they saw her passing by. I mean, these are extraordinary scenes. I've just come down from Edinburgh, and the scenes there.
On the approach to Constitution Hill. Come on to the final approach here to Buckingham Palace. We have family members inside the palace who are waiting. They're waiting for the arrival, principally of their mother's body.
I think during the course of the evening, this is the family's last chance to have that private farewell. We would expect the family, obviously, to stand vigil in Westminster Hall, but tonight is the nearest. And here, of course, they're now in, I suppose, what you would call the home straight.
The final furlong.
The Princess Royal obviously following behind. And that was a very moving statement, wasn't it, that was released from the Princess Royal at 7 o'clock?
Yes, heartfelt and timed in a very deliberate way for the return to London. Princess Royal waited. Here at Buckingham Palace, the outriders have just gone past.
जी, तो यहाँ पर क्वीन लास्ट जो उनका मोमेंट है वो है, यहाँ पर उनकी जो बॉडी है ना, उनको बकिंगम पैलेस के अंदर लेके जाया जा रहा है। लोग बहुत एक्साइटेड हैं जी, क्योंकि उन्होंने अपनी क्वीन को जो है ना यहाँ देखा है। क्वीन इन रास्तों से गुजरती थी, इन रास्तों पे आती थी और इस पैलेस पे बालकनी में खड़े के वेव करती थी। तो आज उनका जस्ते खाकी जो है ना, जो उनकी बॉडी है वो पैलेस में लेके जा रहे हैं। वहाँ पर उन्हें एक बहुत जो रोशनीदार कमरा है वहाँ रखा जाएगा। तो ये देखिए जी, वो एंटर हो रही हैं बकिंगम पैलेस में। ठीक है जी, तो बस आप मेरे साथ रहिएगा, मैं पूरी कोशिश करूँगी कि मैं वहाँ पर भी जा सकूँ और मैं आपको लाइव भी कुछ थोड़ा बहुत दिखा सकूँ। तो यहाँ पर वो भी देखिए, गार्ड वगैरह सारे अंदर है, उनकी फैमिली अंदर है, प्रिंसेस जो एन है वो है अंदर, और वो सारे अब अपनी मदर को वेलकम कहेंगे अंदर। ये वो जगह है जहाँ पर वो वॉक करके जाया करती थी और जहाँ से वो बाहर लोगों को जब वो वेव किया करती थी.
To Buckingham Palace. Coffin of the late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II has been brought back from Scotland, from Balmoral, flown from Edinburgh to London, driven from RAF Norfolk to Buckingham Palace, where it will lie at rest overnight in the bow room of the palace, and then tomorrow afternoon will be taken in a formal procession, a state procession, from the palace to Westminster Hall, in the ancient precincts of the Palace of Westminster, where a body will lie in state for 4 days and nights until the state funeral takes place on Monday. And the vast crowd here, which has waited patiently in the rain and in the wind, rain has just about held off now, some people beginning to disperse, but lots of people cheering when the staters arrived. They just wanted to show their appreciation and their admiration. So while some stood in silence, others wanted to express a different emotion, and that is the nature of the event.